India's biggest climate change conference, COP29, has just kicked off in Baku, Azerbaijan. Over the next 2 weeks, delegates from nearly 200 countries will hold multiple meetings to discuss how they can prevent climate change from intensifying further. But the major task at hand this year is to negotiate a new climate finance target. Let's give you some history. Back in 1992, the UN Climate Convention clearly stated that the wealthier developed nations should provide financial resources to help the developing countries combat climate change. Why? Because these nations in the global north are historically the largest emitters of greenhouse gases. They achieve their development at the expense of climate and must now own up the responsibility for the warming that is affecting the rest of the world. So in 2009, they agreed to provide $100 billion annually till 2020. However, this promise remained largely unfulfilled, except once in 2022. But now the scale of the problem has escalated from millions to billions of dollars. And COP29 must now set a new climate finance target to replace the previous one. This is known as the New Collective Quantified Goal, N18G. But why do we need this money? Now, developing countries need these funds to implement their climate action plans, transition to clean energy, reduce emissions, and adapt to the devastating impacts of global warming. Over the next 2 weeks, countries will negotiate how much money will be pledged, who will contribute and how much, and what will be the funds used for. Most importantly, how will this financial flow be managed? Now, the countries are deeply divided on all these issues. But the most pressing question is how much money will be agreed upon. Now, the figure must reflect the needs and the priorities of the global south, which includes countries in Africa, South Asia, and all the small island nations. However, it is not that simple to quantify. Now, the developing countries, including India, argue that the amount should be at least $1 to $2 trillion annually, which represents just 1% of the global GDP in 2023. On the other hand, the developed countries have yet to propose any specific numbers. Now, the lack of commitment is hardly surprising. But what are the main points of contention here? First, the Global South insists that the funds should mostly come from the public sources in the form of grants and concessional loans rather than private finance. Now, this is because the private finance is often at the mercy of market forces, many developing countries, and are already burdened with significant debt. Now, this is one of the most debated issues. Secondly, the developing countries propose that the finance target must be set for a 5-year period through 2030, with a gradual increase thereafter. Now, the wealthier nations like the US, Australia, the European Union, Switzerland, Japan, UK and Canada and Norway are also arguing that the more countries should contribute based on their gross national income and cumulative emissions. So where do we stand now? Experts tell us that the global north has enough money to provide. It's just a matter of misplaced priorities. Now, these countries continue to pour money into military spending, fossil fuel subsidies and oil and gas extraction. So, will climate action receive the attention it so desperately needs? Will the wealthier nations step up? We'll have to see. But the escalating natural disasters around the world are reminding us that the clock is ticking.